What are habits? Habits are patterns of behavior that are deeply wired into our brain by the constant repetition, and they make life easy for us because they prevent us from constantly having to reinvent the wheel and think about how we can change ordinary habits and daily routines. They help us to navigate through the daily routines, and they help us that way to free our mind and our brain power to concentrate on solving more complex problems, or even for our growth. Good habits, as an example, like having a regular exercise routine, or eating healthy meals, taking the time to rest and recharge, taking self-care time, learning a new language. They help us to achieve our full potential and to accomplish our goals. Bad habits, on the other hand, like, coming home and watching TV every night, or eating dinner in front of the TV, relying on coffee to survive the day, eating sweets all the time when you're stressed, or turning to social media on our phone when we're stressed or bored. Those habits don't only waste our time and energy, they also can have serious health risks or health effects. So when you implement positive and healthy habits into your daily routine, it will help you transform your life and to make your life even better. So having said that, let's have a look at how we can actually make a change. Okay, so there are 4 steps on how you can break a habit. The first thing you need to take into consideration is, which behavior do you want to change? Do you want to lose weight and start with a regular exercise routine? Do you want to reduce your cravings or eat less sugar? Do you want to stop watching TV and doing something else instead? We all have millions of habits, but the first thing you need to do before we can actually think about how to make a change is to define which is the habit or what is the unconscious behavior that you would like to change. Because the stronger your why, the stronger will be the how, and the more you committed you will be. The second thing is to become aware of the subconscious behavior. Like I said in the previous webinar, over 90% of everything we do happens unconsciously. We don't even have to think about it. There are routines that are wired into our brains for millions of years. They help us to survive. So at the same time, we can't make a change from one day to another. It requires time. So the first thing is to become aware of the subconscious behavior through a trigger. As an example, it's 10:30 in the morning and you're ready for the daily coffee break with your colleagues, coffee cigarette break, because it gives you a certain reward. So you now have the chance, by becoming aware of your trigger or your behavior, to change your mindset. Do you want to keep having your favorite latte macchiato every day? Do you want to keep drinking that? Or have you decided to reduce your coffee? That means you could implement a change. You have the change in your mindset. You can either repeat the same thing over and over again, or you can decide to evolve and make a change. In this case, as an example, instead of having your latte macchiato, why don't you switch to a black coffee or a tea instead? Or why don't you just go out for a walk? Because usually this gets triggered because we may have a lack of concentration. We may need fresh air. We're craving the company of our coworkers. As an example, it doesn't matter, where you work. Or if you, as an example, want to incorporate a weekly exercise routine, then instead of coming home and sitting right on the couch, turning on the TV, you may consciously decide, okay, well, now I'm going to put on my trainers and I'm going to go for a walk instead. So the reward in this case will be to replace the habit, the subconscious behavior, with a better one. In this case, like I said, instead of having a cup of coffee, you decide to have a green tea. Instead of going straight to the couch, when you get home, turning on the TV, you may decide to put on your trainers, you go for a walk. And so on. There are a lot of examples I will be giving you, but you have the conscious choice, once you've identified your behavior, to make that change and say, I'm going to change this differently this time. I want to repeat. Some people of you may want to quit smoking. So you have that choice. You have the choice to say, okay, I'm not going to turn my cigarette on. I'm going to go out for a walk. Or a lot of people, Emotional eating is such a big thing. A lot of people eat out of emotions because we're sad, we're feeling lonely, we're feeling stressed, so we turn to chocolate. So instead of doing that, when we feel lonely, as an example, I hear this a lot, when people are single, living by themselves, and they get home and they crave company. So instead of grabbing the chocolate or turning on the TV or even a glass of wine, you may just call a friend. You will then, as an example, you will then overcome that craving. Okay, so let's see if we can actually implement a habit. And let's go back to this example that I've already started giving you. If you, as an example, want to reduce the amount of coffee you drink a day, and by saying that, I'm not saying that coffee is bad. I mean, coffee has certain health benefits. It's a stimulant to the body. It gives you better concentration. At the same time, it produces adrenaline in the body because it's a stimulant. So that means the body gets on stress response. And depending on how much coffee you drink, depending on how stressed you are and what your body's conditions are, you may want to not drink coffee in excess because it can promote anxiety, nervousness, insomnia, like not being able to sleep. So to quit coffee or reduce coffee promotes better sleep. It reduces your blood pressure and it can help you with digestion. So in here, I don't mean having 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. There are people who really rely on coffee all day long. They drink, 4 or 5 cups. So then let's go back to this example. What's the trigger? Like I said, it's 10:30 in the morning. Off you go with your colleagues to the kitchen to have your latte macchiato. And I'm saying it's a great thing that we have all this stuff for free. So this time, instead of having a latte macchiato, like I said, just have a black coffee. Or go out for a walk. You want to make sure you get the same reward. The reward as to feel more concentrated, again, to get fresh air, to get fresh air in your lungs, to have the same effect. So when you want to make a change. Or as an example, if you want to quit smoking, another example. Instead of going out and putting on the cigarette, maybe just go for a walk. Or go with a colleague to a walking meeting instead. And the reward will be, it increases your energy level. It improves your mood, going back to the example with the coffee. It cleans your lungs when you go outside, get the fresh air, and you still have the social time with your coworkers. In the end, my friends, it's all about the consistency, making small and simple steps. So let's see why changing a habit may not be that easy, because otherwise we would all be doing that. We wouldn't have any negative habits. And here, I'll think about January 1st when we all have New Year's resolutions. We have all these things we want to accomplish. We want to eat healthier. We want to implement an exercise routine. And we want to start a new class, and language course, and do this and that. And then a month later, what happens? Most people have slipped and given up. This is why. In many cases, we put ourselves goals that are simply unachievable. If you decide to quit coffee, and you rely on 4 cups of coffee, drink 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day, you cannot simply, from one day to another, just think 0. Some people can, but most people cannot, because the body has to adapt. It's a process. It's not an event that happens overnight. Lacking commitment is another problem. Commitment or discipline. You set yourself the goal, I won't be drinking as much coffee, I will be working out, I will dedicate time to studying, to learn a new language. But then what happens in the end? You don't have the discipline that is needed. Or you can't exceed or fulfill your own expectations. A lot of times we have so many expectations towards ourselves. We set high expectations. And if we can't fulfill them, we judge ourselves. We make ourselves smaller. You can't do this anyway. I knew you would be doing this. It happens all the time. Just remember last time. Negative self-talk. We do this all the time, and most of the time we're even worse with ourselves than with others. Advertisement, as an example. If you decide to quit chocolate or cakes, and you see these huge billboards with your velvet milk chocolate or Rittersport or whatever you can see, well, some people may end up, they look damn good, these pictures, going into a store and just buying yourself a piece of chocolate. So distractions are everywhere. Social media is a big thing. A lot of people these days turn to their phone. constantly on their phone, looking social media, trying to get acceptance from other people. We can't live with these phones anymore. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just saying that it's always good to limit the time you spend on social media. Not doing this, before you go to bed, switch off your phone or put it on flight mode and so on. I mean, there are lots of little things and tricks you can do, but it helps to reduce the phone, the time you spend on the phone. And with the new phones, I have an iPhone, but you get the screen time usage, so it shows you how much time you spend on social media. So that's another way to control it. Comparison to others. How often do we compare ourselves to other people? Oh, look at my neighbor, he's so disciplined. He always gets up in the morning and goes for a run. I don't know how he does this. I can never do this. Stop it. We don't need to compare ourselves to others. We are unique. We have our own journey. So there's no point in comparing ourselves to what other people are doing. And it may require intensive time for planning. As an example, if you decide to eat healthier meals and you want to start cooking, so you have to first of all make a grocery list, then go to the grocery store, buy the new products, the produce, and then cook it. That takes time. I started cooking, making my own meals a couple of months ago, and it does actually require time. It's not just takes much longer than just going and buying a ready-made meal or going out for dinner. That's another reason why people just end up giving up. And impatience. We're so impatient these days, really. If a website doesn't open within 2 seconds, we're like, oh my God, this doesn't work. It's just imagine like 10 years ago, like when we didn't have internet. I don't know. It's like we're so impatient. We want things to happen tomorrow or ideally today. So we just need to give ourselves time. Our body has adapted to certain behaviors over millions of years. It's not something we can change overnight. Everyone who thinks that making a change happens overnight is completely unrealistic and impossible. So be patient with yourselves. It's like I said, it's a process. It's not an event. So it's important that you enjoy the journey to the end goal or to the destination. So now we've talked about how difficult it may be. Now I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do that helps you to actually break free from a negative habit and build a new habit, how you can get out of your comfort zone. Because many of us are stuck in our comfort zones, Okay, tips for changing habits. The first advice I want to give you is start small and then build up. Because it gives you the confidence you need. Going back to the example about the coffee, if you drink 4 cups of coffee a day, instead of quitting from one day to another, maybe just start reducing it. Go down from 4 to 2, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Reduce from latte macchiato to black coffee or black tea. Same with cigarettes. If you smoke a whole pack a day, why don't you just reduce it to half a pack? There are people who prefer the drastic change. I've seen lots of people who do this. I'm going to quit from tomorrow on. And they can maintain that. But bear in mind, it's like with diets. The goal is not to do this over a certain period of time. The goal is not to do this for 30 days and then fall back into your own patterns. The goal is to make a lifestyle change your mindset, make a shift. That should be the goal for everything you do. So start small and then gradually build up. Same with exercise. If you've never exercised before, there's no point in saying I'm going to start working out 4 days a week from next week on. Start small. Start with 2 days. And maybe instead of going for a run, start walking. Walk as fast and as much as possible. And track your steps. I love this. I always track my steps. Then you can compete either with yourself in the result of the previous weeks, or you can, do this with someone else and then just compare, do like a little challenge. Another second advice is track your process. Write it down. Analysis have shown that it's so much stronger when you write something down. It helps you to remember, and it gives you a sense of fulfillment. So put it on a paper, write it onto your phone, but don't just have it in your head. Put it on paper. And then what I always do when I have a certain goal, I'll every day I've achieved the goal, I'll put it on the list, and then I tick it off. And I'm like, yes, I've done 10 days, I've done 20 days, 30 days. That helps me as an example. But just see if that works for you. And get support, like you've seen on this picture. You know, there are people who love working out by themselves, who love making changes. Others need support. We need that accountability. We need the motivation. If you think you can't do it by yourself, just ask someone for help. Ask someone to do this with you. Whether that's exercising, whether that's quitting coffee, whatever your habit is that you want to implement or change. Just get that partner in crime. And the accountability is really a big thing. You know, you can hold yourselves accountable. Be patient and committed, as I already said. You know, it's not something that can change from one day to another. And reward yourself. I have this 90-10 rule. You know, 90% of the time, I'm good. And 10%, I wouldn't say a cheat, but I can indulge and treat myself. You know, if you've accomplished something, you should be proud of yourself. We should celebrate it. It doesn't mean that if you, as an example, want to quit smoking or stop drinking coffee, and after 3 weeks you drink 4 cups again. It shouldn't be that way. But you should be proud of yourself and celebrate the process, or the little milestones, accomplishments along the way, because it will give you the motivation and the power to keep doing that. Because, like I said, it's the journey that matters. It's not only the destination. It's not only where we want to get to. It's the actual trip that we're going on. So always take that in mind. And now, what can I say last? Start where you are. Use what you have and do what you can. And stop comparing yourself to others. Your goal is unique to you, whatever that goal may be. And I can tell you, there will be days where it's tough, you know, where you feel like giving up, where you struggle. And I mean, if you have those days and you really can't walk past that piece of chocolate, or you really feel like slumping back on the couch and just watching your TV show, your favorite TV show, because you had a stressful day and you need a glass of wine, then just go ahead and do it. Because the point is not to be miserable. The point is to enjoy the journey. And like I said, if we look back at diets and so many things that people do, it's not about those 30 days where you restrict yourself. The goal is to make a lifestyle change, to implement a positive habit into your routine. So it becomes a pattern. Everything that you repeat over 6 weeks period. I mean, there are certain studies, some say, it takes 4 weeks to change a habit, others say 6 and 8. I say for me, it's 6 weeks to change a habit, to change a pattern. That's how long it will take. And then I can promise you, your body will get used to it. For those who attended the last webinar, I talked about the morning routine, having a morning routine, and how I started to take cold showers in the morning, to wake up, to stimulate the blood flow, to increase the immune system or strengthen the immune system. And even though I hated it, and I still hate it some days, the body kind of is craving this now. My body needs this cold shower in the morning, because it's really deeply wired into my brain and into my routine now. And so now just go back, think about what is it that you want to change into your habit, which is the habit that you want to break free of. And I want to emphasize, it's not about breaking the habit. It's about substituting your negative habit through a positive one. Go back, think about what it is that you want to change, and then don't start tomorrow or wait for next week or wait for January 1st. Start making a change now. Now is the time to make a change.